Rudy's revelation.
13, Sergeant 1 Essential.
I'm an American. I have rights.
Number 30 Broad Street, 1022.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. It is May 29th, Thursday. All right, welcome to the show. Today, we're going to talk about the tariffs. Trump's tariffs have been struck down by a court, the International Trade Court. It's a federal agency, but it's the International Trade Court. Struck down Trump's ability to apply tariffs to other countries. Obviously, it's a national security issue. We're not really sure how and why this decision came about, but the International Trade Court, they specialize in admiralty law and the international trading of multinational companies. So, of course, they're going to be on that side of the coin. What we're going to have here today is, let me just see. I'm trying to simulcast here, so bear with me. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the fact that this court struck down the law, struck down the tariffs for Trump, but also we have politicians saying that, hold on a second here, the biggest chip producer and the most sought after chips by computer tech chips by Nvidia, one of the most powerful tech companies in the world right now, is saying, by the way, with this new ruling, yeah, we're not only going to keep our manufacturing in China, we're going to bolster our manufacturing in China, which, of course, a lot of this is what I like to refer to as a national security issue. It's trade, the ability of using national security in trade. It refers, and we're going to get into the headlines in just a second, refers to sanctions and other means of trade to be able to combat an enemy, such as China. So we're going to get into the national security aspects of this right now. So let's see if we can't get into the headlines for today, May 29th. All right, we're going to start out with the Wall Street Journal. Senators bash Nvidia's plans for facility in China. Lawmakers accuse chipmaker of undercutting national security. Well, one of the senators who were lashing out about Nvidia's plan to build, not only stay in China, keep their manufacturing in China, but to build more manufacturing in China, exactly an opposite of what Trump wants. One of the opponents of this plan was Liz Warren. Now, what we understand here is Liz Warren and the Democrat politicians, Democrat lawmakers, and other people are filing lawsuits, and states are filing lawsuits against Trump for being able to levy tariffs. And now that their legal foray against Trump, their legal battle against Trump over tariffs has succeeded, now they're worried that manufacturers are going to double down on their facilities in China. Wall Street Journal, Trade Court strikes down Trump's global tariffs. Businesses and states had sued the government, saying that the president did not have authority to impose levies. So we're talking about getting sued by states and companies. Now, companies have vested interests. We could understand why they want to do that. It's their fiduciary responsibility for their shareholders to minimize any cost, which includes paying the government tariffs. So that's not surprising, but why state governments would sue the Trump administration when what he's trying to do is benefit America overall, benefit the playing field, level the playing field for Americans in this trade war. So Trump's tariffs ruled illegal by federal judicial panel. The U.S. Court of International Trade said the president had overstepped his authority in imposing reciprocal tariffs globally, as well as levies on Canada and Mexico. Well, we have to share something here because what are they talking about? Right? What is the court talking about? Well, the court is going to be biased because the court is a panel that oversees admiralty law, international trade disputes, and so forth and so on. What have we found out? Well, what we found out is that they're biased. They're biased for the corporation, so none of this is going to be really surprising. Now, is this a blow to the Trump administration? Sure it is. But realistically, what we're going to understand here is that the Trump administration is going to put forth the case of national security, which is what this is all about. Because as I said often and time again, that what we're going to see is that using trade as a weapon against adversarial countries is part of national security. So if they're going to strip out tariffs out of the toolbox of national security, the ability for the administration to provide national security, and that includes using trade, because it's already in that in terms of sanctions and other boycotts and so forth and so on. So a tariff is just part of that. They say the law doesn't talk about tariffs, but I think they're going to lose. Again, this is a lower federal court. All, as I said previously, all suits that come down to challenging the executive branch must be adjudicated in the Supreme Court, not in lower federal courts, although that might be where you launch your suit or present your suit. Realistically, can only be ruled on by SCOTUS, and everybody knows that by now. All right, let's get back to the headlines. Getting back to this New York Times story, a panel of federal judges on Wednesday blocked President Trump. Again, it's a block. President Trump from imposing some of his steepest tariffs on China. And again, this is national security. So this international trade court really doesn't have jurisdiction. Another U.S. trading partner is finding the federal law did not grant him, Trump, unbounded authority to tax imports from nearly every country around the world. The ruling by the U.S. Court of International Trade delivered an early yet significant setback to Mr. Trump. And the reason they say it's early is because, again, this is blocked. This is a stay. Because anything that's challenging the executive branch must go before the Supreme Court. They can't make a ruling in any lower federal courts, whether it's the Court of International Trade or the Court of Gobbledygook. It doesn't matter. It's a lower federal court, and in decisions regarding the executive branch, it has to be ruled on by the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court ultimately decides whether something is constitutional or not. Before Mr. Trump took office, no president had sought to invoke the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, a 1977 law, to impose tariffs on other nations. The law, which primarily concerns trade embargoes and sanctions, which again deals with trade, does not even mention tariffs. Because the way the law was founded is that trade embargoes and sanctions are the most extreme. So you're allowed to go to the most extreme trade remedies it must be assumed that you could certainly levy taxes. The Court of International Trade, the primary federal legal body overseeing such matters, it's not the primary federal legal body. The Supreme Court is the primary federal legal body. We're not talking about whether or not companies can do XYZ in their trading. This has to do with the executive branch, whether the executive has constitutional powers to do X, Y, or Z. And this federal legal body found that Mr. Trump's exceeded any authority granted to the president by emergency powers law, ruling in separate cases brought by states and businesses. A bipartisan panel of 3 judges, not bipartisan really. I bet you 2 are Democrats, essentially declared many, but not all of Mr. Trump's tariffs have been issued illegally. That's not true. The ruling does not affect tariffs issued by Mr. Trump administration under separate legal authorities, which there are many, including levies on steel, aluminum, and cars, and others that Mr. Trump has threatened on pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and other critical products. See? So they're not in or under the umbrella of national security is steel, aluminum, cars, and they say cars in there because they're masking what steel and aluminum is what you make war products out of. Tanks and ships are made out of steel and aircraft are made out of aluminum. And pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and other critical products. So pharmaceuticals obviously are of national security concern, and semiconductors are also used in the military-industrial complex. Goes on to say unfair trade relationships have decimated American communities, left our workers behind, and weakened our defense industrial base, facts that the court did not dispute, indeed. And that's why those things are set aside. It is not for unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency, which we are in. Mr. Trump would use every lever of executive power to address this crisis. Moving on to other news. Just the news, top Trump economic advisor predicts legislative agenda will make American families $10,000 richer. President Trump's chief economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, is projecting that the big, beautiful bill is working its way through Congress will help American families grow their income by $10,000 over the next few years, a statistic that could impact kitchen table politics and pressure senators currently reluctant to vote for the legislation. Well, we know we need a kick in the pants economically. And Trump was doing all that, and I don't know why the Democrats feel that it's okay to undo economic policies that have worked previously and that will help the American people, unlike the Biden administration's economic policies where it just caused inflation and didn't really help anybody. Got another headline here from the National Review. How both parties are messaging, on Medicaid as 2026 midterms heat up. What are they talking about here? They're talking about we're talking about Medicaid in this big, beautiful bill. Democrats believe Republicans are starting off with a disadvantage on Medicaid issues, given that it's baked in with voters that conservatives traditionally want to gun entitlements, even though the White House warned congressional GOP leaders against massive entitlement cuts when drafting the legislation. And the current House-passed bill includes work requirement exemptions with exceptions for pregnant women, disabled Americans, and the elderly. We're talking about Medicaid. Doesn't fucking cut Medicaid. Okay, there are two things. Kicks off all illegal immigrants and asks for work requirements of able-bodied Americans, which they say will kick off several million because they'll refuse to work. They won't be able to get entitlements. Or what is happening here is that there are are they really imaginary people, let's say, or people using names of other people, or conspiracies that are bilking Medicaid out of service entitlements for people that don't really exist. So there's no way they could meet work requirements if they don't exist. Fox News is reporting GOP rallies or rails against blatantly false Dem claims about Medicaid reform and Trump's big, beautiful bill. The DCC says House Republicans' giant tax scam will kick millions of people off their health insurance. And of course, then Republicans say that's blatantly false. Well, of course it is. It will kick people off, people that won't be able to meet work requirements for a variety of different reasons. But it's not a giant tax scam. It's tax breaks for all Americans. And that benefits Americans and it benefits the economy. More money in your pocket means more money to spend. And as we saw yesterday, the consumer index is up again in May. So shutting out China when our consumer index is going up and shutting out China at the same time is a good thing. Story goes on to say the one big beautiful bill puts Americans first. We're securing the border. We're protecting benefits for the most vulnerable and investing in Americans' manufacturing. We're investing in our own energy production, said Representative Aaron Hochin, a Republican of Indiana. The Democrats have been focusing on this specific line of attack that 13.7 million Americans are going to lose their health care, and it's just blatantly false. It's mostly half of that is illegal immigrants, so that's about 5 million. All right, so a third. The other 2/3 are Americans that are bilking the system that can work or could work but won't work. Goes on to say 5 million of those people are receiving tax credit under the Affordable Care Act that was passed by the Democrats with a sunset date that was implemented by the Democrats. We're simply allowing that sunset date to expire as the Democrats originally had intended. So it was part of the written into the Democrat bill that sunsetted. So their tax credit for the Affordable Care Act, they'll lose that. Who knows that's how that's tied into the bill? Doesn't matter. Like I said, I'm for a social safety net, but it has to be poor. And it can't be easy. If it's hard for me to get my pistol permit, then it should be hard for people to get money from the government. I'm giving the government money, giving the state government money to get a pistol permit. I'm not asking for money, but it's easier to get the money to get the government to give you money than it is to get something that's enshrined as your individual liberty. Story goes on to say, if you have to think about the 4 things that we're doing in Medicare to strengthen it, we're removing anybody that is illegal, ineligible, or duplicate, and we're ensuring that able-bodied adults on the expansion population a very modest work requirement in exchange for receiving benefits. Means like to receive unemployment, you have to show that you're looking for a job. Those things are overwhelmingly supported by the American people, yet the Democrats continue to lie about what's in this bill is actually doing, Hochin said. More headlines from Zero Hedge. U.S. Titan screws jet engine part semiconductor tech exports to China halted amid supply chain war. What exactly are they talking about here? This is part of the trade war. The trade war is focused predominantly on China because it's the fact that we're, some would say, inexorably intertwined with China, with manufacturing, that we need to break that as a national security issue. That's why even when the judge halted certain tariffs, they said, well, aluminum and steel is off. Semiconductors are off. I mean, come on. Now, he made it broad-based tariffs, so it wouldn't look like the Chinese are singled out, excuse me. The ongoing war on China, and we have been in a war on China. It's a fifth generational war on China. The other word they use for fifth generational war is asymmetrical warfare. And the AP is reporting, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that U.S. will begin revoking the visas of Chinese students. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Wednesday that the U.S. will begin revoking the visas of some Chinese students, including those studying in critical fields. China is the second largest country of origin for international students in the United States. You know why that is. It's only behind India. In 2023-24 school year, more than 270,000 international students were from China. Over 250,000 Chinese, ostensibly spies, making up roughly a quarter of all foreign students in the United States. Under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. State Department will work with the Department of Homeland Security to aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in crucial fields. Here's the deal. Is the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, has been investigating the fact that certain universities are having a far too close relationship with Chinese technical students who they say the universities are sharing critical research with, and they're not supposed to be doing that. Now, it wasn't that long ago that the biomedical chief at Harvard was found to be sharing biomedical research with the Communist Chinese Party. Another article here from PJ Media. Rubio's new rules, part 2, just say no to the CCP. Under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. State Department will work with the Department of Homeland Security, as I read this before, aggressively revoke visas of Chinese students or studying critical theories. We also revise visa criteria to enhance scrutiny for all future visa applications from the People's Republic of China and Hong Kong. Also a headline from the Associated Press, Elon Musk is leaving the Trump administration after leading efforts to slash the federal government. After spearheading efforts to reduce and overhaul the federal bureaucracy, he announced Wednesday evening he's marking the end of a turbulent chapter that included thousands of layoffs, the evisceration of government agencies, and reams of litigation. Despite the upheaval, the billionaire entrepreneur struggled in the unfamiliar environment of Washington as he accomplished far less than he had hoped. He had hoped, targeting the cutting of spending from $2 trillion to $1 trillion to $150 billion, and increasingly expressed frustration about resistance to his goals. Sometimes he clashed with other top members of the Trump administration who chafed at the newcomers' efforts to reshape their departments. Now, what are they talking about here specifically? They're talking about the defense budget. Now, if any of the budgets of the federal government need to be looked at, it was the Defense Department. And although Pete Hegseth welcomed it and Elon Musk said he was going to do it, I guess it was far too touchy for some Republicans to allow DOJ to even take a look at the Defense Department, which is a shame because that's where the majority of waste and fraud is, And that's why he had to, that's where you could save hundreds of billions of dollars in the Defense Department. So was there that much fraud? Was there resistance too much to cut? Problem is, when people are spending money, no one likes to cut spending because they're all feeding at the trough. All right. Reuters is reporting Republicans will seek to cement Trump's immigration legacy and sweeping bill. No. Are they going to codify anything? No, they're just codifying the funding, which is the problem. Instead of making it law, well, they're sort of making it law, but funding can change. But instead of making it law that you must, the federal government somehow must do everything within their power to keep illegals from crossing the border. But they don't. So it is already illegal to cross it, but it should be the federal government's, whatever's within their power to do, they must do it or else. Speaking of ultimatums, the New York Post, President Trump gives Putin a deadline to prove he's serious about ending the war in Ukraine. President Trump appeared to give Vladimir Putin a hard deadline. We're going to find out on whether or not he's tapping us along or not, and if he is, we'll respond a bit differently, but it'll take about a week or a half or 2 weeks, he told reporters. And he mentioned this during his swearing in of Jeanine Pirro as the new prosecutor for Washington, D.C. Hey, man. Post Millennial is reporting watchdog group finds no evidence Biden knew of climate executive orders signed with AutoPen. There's no evidence that the Biden ordered it, declared it, or even aware that it was happening, which means they're going into investigating the use of the AutoPen. And if the president isn't aware of an executive order, he's the one that's supposed to be issuing it, then it could be revoked. Also from the post-millennial, D.C. shooter Elias Rodriguez called for genocide of white people in leaked text messages. Elias Gonzalez, 31 of Chicago, has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in the killing of an Israeli couple in D.C. And apparently he was writing that he called for a genocide of white people and the shooter's disturbing obsession with this particular demographic. Additionally, witness testimony, additional messages demonstrated that Rodriguez held an animosity toward Israel and supported Hamas, the Palestinian terrorist organization. It's a militant organization. It has a political arm, but let's not go crazy with the terrorism word. The communications provide a more comprehensive understanding of the alleged cold-blooded killer's political ideologies and long-standing convictions. LOL, this is straight from one of his texts. You probably would have to actually genocide white people to make this a normal country because he's not white. It's okay to cast stones at people you're not. Like, even a very targeted and selective rehabilitation program would probably have to lead to the lifetime imprisonments of tens of millions of white people. So we see here that he is just a fucking communist because that's what the communists wanted to do. The Federalist declassified doc. FBI, DOJ declined to charge Russia collusion hoaxer who allegedly lied to Congress. Who are they talking about? Another blast from the past, Nellie Orr, whose husband also worked for the Justice Department. The FBI and the DOJ's failure to hold Orr accountable for appearing to commit multiple felonies and its obstructive conduct against agents that sought additional information reveals the agency's deeply disturbing political bias. Of course, these people were committing felonies in regards to the running of the federal government. Newly declassified analysis reveals that the FBI and the Department of Justice under Biden We're aware of allegations of the Russia collusion hoaxer, or was this under the first Trump administration? Nellie Orr lied to Congress regarding her role in the infamous Crossfire Hurricane investigation, but chose not to pursue charges. She perjured herself in a way to obstruct justice. That's a felony. More news from Just the News. Trump pardons former Army officer court-martialed over COVID-19 vaccine test face mask rules. You might have heard of this guy, Lieutenant Mark Bashar, or Bashaw, was discharged from the Army following his court-martial in 2022 over the Biden administration's COVID rules to work in the office, as he refused to work remotely. The Hill news outlet reported the president pardoned Bashaw on Thursday. Well, good news. I hope that there's going to be some cases out there that will allow me to sue my former employer for discharging me. Is really a constitutional violation of my religious rights. More news from the Wall Street Journal. Big tax breaks for health savings accounts get even better in GOP bill. Another 20 million Americans could soon have access to terrific tax advantages of HSAs. If you don't have an HSA, you should get one. So what it does is it takes money out of your paycheck and puts it in a health savings account, tax-free, and that you can use this money for anything health-related, even for groceries from the drugstore, CVS, etc. So health savings accounts are good, and it's always your money. When I left journalism, I had an HSA account, and it turned out the state held that for me, and it was a couple grand, and I got the check from the state. So you should always check with your state. Do you see if the Justice Department there or the Treasury Department is holding unclaimed funds that are owed to you? Post Millennials reporting San Francisco students can graduate with failing grades under the new grading for equity guidelines. Students may submit assignments late, fail to attend class, or choose not to attend at all without consequences to their academic performance. On Tuesday, the San Francisco Public School District announced a new grading policy that will allow students to graduate classes with scores as low as 21%. The grading for equity method eliminates work, it says homework, and weekly test scores from a student's final semester grade. Instead, there will be one test at the end of each semester to decide if a student has passed the class. The final exam can be taken several times, and there probably would be allowed to fail it, I'm sure. You did so good, Joe. You answered every question. That's why we're losing as a country, because when you take away the meritocracy with all this DEI bullshit, the cream doesn't rise to the top. You understand what I'm saying? The best way to conduct any sort of business, I'm not saying that people that don't excel shouldn't have employment somewhere. Sure, they should. But the stupidest person shouldn't be the CEO. Or you shouldn't get you should get the smartest person for the top jobs. Sorry. That way runs the way it should. You know what? You want to be the president of a company? Start your own company. Then you could nepotism, you could hire all your friends and family, but it's your company. So if the company doesn't succeed because you put morons in charge, or yourself in charge, or both, and the company doesn't work, you only have yourself to blame. But what people don't realize, they don't start companies, they don't know what's involved in running companies, and they just said, I should be the manager. Why shouldn't I be the manager? It's racism. New York Times is reporting a desperate Haiti turns to Eric Prince, Trump ally, in fight against gangs. The Haitian government has signed a contract with Mr. Prince, the private military contractor who founded Blackwater, a company notorious for civilian casualties. It was just that one episode in Iraq. And what we that's what we saw after that. Right? Remember the contractors strung up on the bridge? Remember that one in Fallujah? I think it was Fallujah, or it's Tikrit. I think it was Tikrit. And it was after that that the contractors were a little edgy. So they're getting operators to try to do something about Haiti. They're going to have contractors in there. Let the professionals do the work. So I'm interested to see how this goes down. Perry and I talked about this at some length, is, turning Haiti around. Haiti, as an island in the Caribbean, could be a great Trump resort. All right, let's get to the article. Eric Prince, a private military contractor and prominent supporter of President Trump, is working with Haiti's government to conduct lethal operations against gangs that are terrorizing the nation and threatening to take over the capital. Mr. Prince, the founder of Blackwater Worldwide, signed a contract to take on the criminal groups that have been killing civilians and seizing control of the vast areas of territory, according to senior Haitian and American government officials and several other security experts familiar with Mr. Prince's work in Haiti. Prince is said to be scouting Haitian military, been scouting for Haitian American military veterans. So they need people that speak Haitian Creole that can work undercover to hire to send to Port-au-Prince, and is expected to send up 150 mercenaries, contractors, operators to Haiti over the summer. He recently shipped a large cache of weapons to the country, two experts said. The Haitian government is awaiting the arrival of arms shipments and more personnel has stepped up its fighting against the gangs. Oh, I didn't include that. What I wanted to include here is the fact that the main force is going to be drone related. So Eric Prince is using drones and sophisticated military equipment plus operators on the ground to thwart the control of these gangs in Haiti, because Haiti is a failed state. And, when you have a criminal organization out of control, they could easily take over an impotent government and security. NBC News, Trump says he will look into possible pardons for the men convicted of plotting to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Whitmer, who met with Trump multiple times this year, once placed some of the blame on the plot on Trump's rhetoric. It's not Trump's rhetoric. We all know what it is. It was the FBI, how they entrap people, right? It's the FBI that came up with the plan, and they convinced people to go along with the plan. That doesn't mean it was these guys' plans. And apparently all they wanted was some weed and some food, and they'd go along with whatever. Mediaite is reporting Kash Patel vows to reveal January 6th FBI bombshell that will surprise and shock people. What is he going to say? The FBI weren't in the crowd on January 6th. I don't believe that. I don't believe. It's like once intelligence, always intelligence. Well, he wasn't a badge-carrying FBI agent, but he used to work for the FBI, and he was, it turns out, to be an asset of the FBI in January 6th in some of these. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Patel promised that new revelations about the agency's presence at the January 6th Capitol riots will surprise and shock Americans. Speaking of Bret Baier, he teased the imminent release of a long-waiting report. examining whether FBI informants were present at the Capitol during riots. No, they weren't, he'll say. Because they do this with patriots all the time. You should have, your allegiance should be to the country and to the agency, and, and revealing any secret information could damage the agency. I mean, come on. We know that there were agents in the crowd. We know that. How would you know? There's no way, unless you could use face recognition and somehow these faces will be in some sort of database. We know there were agents in the crowd. We know there were informants in the crowd. We know there were assets in the crowd. We know that there were CIA in the crowd and CIA assets and informants. And we know that there was military intelligence in the crowd. Mostly run by military intelligence. And we know there were military snipers stationed there. But we don't know who planted the pipe bombs, the props. And the person who planted these props, their face was recorded on video. But those clips will never be shown. Former FBI leader Chris Wray eventually admitted to Congress that there were 26 FBI confidential human sources in and around the Capitol on January 6th, but not actual agents. We don't know if that's true. I could say there's definitely a piece of the truth, why it took a ton of time and questioning in Congress for the director to get to the point that I'm trying to eliminate from the FBI. If Congress asks you a question under oath, whether or not there were sources in and around the Capitol, you have to say yes. Come on. I mean, all I have to say is come on. If there's a likelihood that something is true, then it's true. You mean to tell me that you're going to have 1 million MAGA people turn up in D.C. and there's not going to be some sort of pervasive law enforcement interdiction? Come on. Come on. It just, with all we know that has to be true. That of course there were sources, of course there were agents. Would the FBI ever admit there were agents? No, because then it would reveal sources and methods, which they know they don't have to do. New York Times judge says government should release Russian scientists. The judge ordered ICE to release Ksenia Petrova, a researcher at Harvard Medical School who also faces criminal charges. Well, why? Fucking stupid. Why was she arrested? An immigration case stemming from Miss Petrova's failure to declare scientific samples she was carrying into the country. Case closed. She didn't declare scientific biological material she was carrying into the country. That's a have to. And she's communicating with her people at Harvard and in Russia. What do I do? They said sneak it through. You have to go through a lengthy process to bring in biological material into the country. What if it was a virus? This is serious shit. And of course, the New York Times says, unlike other high-profile deportation cases involving academics, Ms. Petrova's began with a customs violation. Indeed, she violated customs, so that's why. Returning to Boston from vacation in France. So she was coming back to France from vacation. She was on vacation. So she was on vacation and she agreed to carry back samples of frog embryos from an affiliate laboratory at the request of her supervisor at Harvard Medical School. So what the fuck is happening? She's on vacation in France and then someone slips her frog embryos to get across the border. And then she's told not to declare it. Why would that not be suspicious? When the samples were discovered during an inspection of Mr. Petrova's baggage at Logan Airport, The customs official canceled her visa on the spot and started deportation process. Of course. She was transferred to an immigration and customs enforcement detention in Louisiana, where she remained for more than 3 months. Why? Because she violated the law. Speaking of violating the law, One American News, two illegal migrants charged in connection with to jet ski hit and run that killed an Air Force Academy cadet candidate. The alleged driver of a jet ski that fatally struck a U.S. Air Force Academy cadet candidate while she was kayaking has been charged with manslaughter. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton announced that Declarlin Alejandra Gonzalez and Michaela Coyo Peroza, both reportedly in the U.S. illegally, had been arrested in the death of Ava Moore, 19. So, two illegal immigrants were jet skiing on Grapevine Lake in North Texas, and then they fled. They killed somebody and then they fled because that's what illegals do. If they were here legally, would they have fled? Who knows? But it's hit and run that results in a homicide. That's murder. Murder is manslaughter, but it's murder. You didn't intend to kill the person, but you did, and then you left. So she might have been revived. And the whole thing with fleeing after a homicide or manslaughter is that if you stayed and got help, maybe that person would have survived. This is the point. They shouldn't even have been here. That's why people are so angry at illegal immigrants who get drunk and kill people in drunk driving accidents. They shouldn't have even been here. If they weren't here, they wouldn't have got drunk. They wouldn't have got behind the wheel, and they wouldn't have killed somebody. So it shouldn't have happened. Also, One American News, illegal immigrant who threatened to kill Trump arrested by ICE agents. ICE arrested an illegal alien who allegedly sought to kill President Trump prior to self-deporting to Mexico. Ramon Morales Reyes, a Mexican national, was arrested on May 22nd after ICE field officer received a threatening letter from Morales Reyes targeting President Trump. Reyes said, "We are tired of this president." Fuck, it's not your president anyway. You're a Mexican national. "We're tired of this president messing with us Mexicans. We have done more for this country than you white people." Oh, a racist also. "You have been deporting my family, and I think it's time for Donald J. Trump to get what he has coming to him." And then he self-deported. Well, good. I hope we got him in Mexico. And he's going to jail. The fuck? I never say we're tired of this president, President Scheinbaum. It's not my country. It's not for you to cast judgment. You're not even supposed to be here. Fucking uppity, man. Holy shit. Associated Press, Tate brothers, Andrew and Tristan Tate, face rape and trafficking charges in the UK. That's not surprising. I don't know what the problem is. It's like Russell Brand and Tristan Tate and Andrew Tate. Now, I know what they're doing. So they get in relationships with girls and then someone could say force, manipulate them to do an OnlyFans page. And then they take some of the money. So they're pimping. But realistically, if you look at the evidence, all the women engaged in this business relationship with their free will. So the problem is that they pined after these guys, and these guys just used them. But that's not a crime. But they pined after these guys, and then they didn't like the way they were treated. And so they agreed with the authorities to press charges. Thanks for joining me this morning. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Check me out on social media. X, Facebook, Undermining, True Social. I'm getting rid of my libpop.org website, so don't bother checking in there. It was just a drain. It was only a few dollars a month, but still a drain. I'm going to reinvest that money in different places. Hopefully to grow the channel. Join me live every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. on Rumble. Remember, you're under attack psychologically and biologically every fucking day. Stay hip to the trick. And I will see you tomorrow. Respect.
Google me, bitch! Google me!
You're crazy, man. You're crazy. I like you, but you're crazy.
I kill you.